Hey y'all, this is Thoughts Between Shots, a storytelling podcast where one great question leads to one unforgettable story. I'm your host, Nami Surur, and every episode I ask my guest to tell a story and then we break it down. So if you want to get better at telling stories, asking better questions, or really just becoming a more effective communicator, you're in the right place. Now, this week is one of those in between episodes where I don't have a guest, but where we just nerd out on storytelling and learn the craft of it. And there's one thing I really wanted to talk about because I recently got this question by someone who said, well, Namrata, I'm not a celebrity, right? I'm just an everyday person. I work at a 9 to 5 job in IT. When would I ever tell a story? Who am I telling a story to? So, in other words, how does an everyday person use storytelling? Here's the thing. Storytelling is not just for big stages or the spotlight. Storytelling is really just effective communication. It's how you become more memorable, more engaging in everyday conversations. There are plenty of use cases that we see every single day. And there's one in particular that I want to talk about today. So if you're single, this is especially applicable to you. Guess what? Storytelling can make or break your chances in the dating world. If you're a bad communicator, your chances of getting that second date are very slim. On the other hand, learning to tell good stories and asking compelling questions can make you more interesting, more desirable, and increase your chances of success in the dating world. How? Let me tell you a story. In the last episode, I talked about putting out a divorce announcement. So, spoiler alert, I got divorced in 2021. I had been with my ex husband for 14 years. We dated for 5 years straight out of college and then got married for 9 years. So, getting back out there was a really daunting task. I had no experience with dating apps because I had met my ex husband in like 2007, long before dating apps were a reality. Obviously, getting back out there was pretty nerve wracking. So it took me about a year to finally get on Bumble and Hinge and all those things. And Hinge was a little easier because it had those cutesy prompts that you could use to start a conversation with people. And soon enough, the messages started to roll in. Now, anyone who's been on dating apps knows that it's pretty treacherous out there. And I needed a way to weed out people in the first round. First and foremost, I was looking for people who were good communicators and had a sense of humor. So I had this technique. I would invariably ask this one question. I think it's a question I heard on Parks and Rec or one of these shows. So it was, would you rather live in a kangaroo pouch for an entire month or have a little baby kangaroo in your shirt pocket for an entire month? And I would use this to gauge someone's sense of humor. If they gave me an interesting, quirky, or funny response, that would tell me, okay, I'm ready to graduate to the next level and maybe go on an in person date for coffee or drinks. Of course, this was not a foolproof method by any means. Once I graduated to in person dates, I realized that it was just as treacherous out there. One of the most memorable dates I went on, for all the wrong reasons, was this guy who seemed to have a really good sense of humor on the app. And then we met in person, and it was a different story. We went for drinks, and I guess in an attempt to impress me with his knowledge of Indian food, because he was a non Indian dude, he started to tell me about this time that he was really craving sambar. Sambar is like a South Indian dish that you have as an accompaniment to dosa, which is objectively the most delicious thing in the world. Sort of like a spicy South Indian lentil soup. And I was okay, I was impressed that he knew what sambar was. And he told me that this one time I was really craving sambar. So I went to the Indian store and I found this sort of shady looking packet of pre made sambar. Turns out it was pretty stale because it gave him a pretty bad case of constipation. So now I'm thinking, all right, well, this took a turn, but go on. Then he started to tell me that, I used to be a drug dealer and so was my roommate at the time. And now I'm thinking, oh God, where is this story going? And then he said one sentence that utterly baffled me. He said, I remembered that my roommate used to cut cocaine with baby laxatives. And now I'm thinking, what on earth does this sentence mean? I mean, I'm this sheltered Indian person who has never experienced anything in the world of drugs. All of these words by themselves made sense to me, but what the hell does cut coke with baby laxatives mean? I was literally at this point picturing someone trying to chop up a brick of cocaine with a little tablet. This is my knowledge of street drugs. If you're equally as clueless as me, let me clarify this for you because he did. I guess when you're selling cocaine on the street, you're never selling pure cocaine, so you need to dilute it with something that can also be cut up into white powder. And in this case, his roommate was using baby laxatives. Anyway, he concluded his story with, well, I got the baby laxatives, I had them, and my bowel movements were back to normal, and all was right in the world again. I don't know why you would tell this story on a first date. Unless you're both ex drug dealers and comparing war stories, there is absolutely no reason to tell this story. Needless to say, there was not a second date. And I wish I could tell you that this was the last train wreck of a date I went on, but oh god, it got so much worse. Because the last person I went on a date with through the apps, after which I deleted everything, just went on private with all my social media, everything, ended up being a convicted felon with 2 counts of attempted murder. So, yeah, that's a story for another time. But suffice it to say, I was done with online dating after that because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And so I deleted all the apps. I put all my social media on private. And I decided that I only wanted to meet someone in person who was fully vetted or not at all. I was going to be totally happy being a single dog lady for life. About a month and a half after I made the decision to completely stop all dating efforts, I decided to go co-work outside. So I got all gussied up. I took my laptop, all my stuff, and I went to this co-working spot that I usually go to. Except about an hour after I get there, all of the outlets stopped working, which was really weird. I went and asked the management, hey, can you figure out this outlet situation? It didn't get fixed, and I was doing editing work, which means it takes a lot of battery power, and my laptop was about to die soon. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go work somewhere else. By this time it was about 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, so there was already rush hour traffic. I drive to my favorite coffee shop in town, which is aptly named Better Half, and you'll find out why. I get to Better Half, go inside. Once again, no outlets are available. And I'm thinking, what is my luck today? Why am I not finding a single outlet? I get back into my car, really crestfallen, thinking, oh God, I really don't want to have to drive to a third location now. But then it occurred to me that, okay, it's Friday afternoon. Surely people are going to stop working. I'm sure an outlet will open up soon enough. I go back inside. My bet pays off because about 10 minutes later, a bunch of outlets open up. Now, the only place that has outlets is this one long communal table where all the seating is side by side. I go and grab a seat in the middle of the table, plug in my laptop, put in my AirPods, and I get to work. About half an hour later, this guy walks in, asks if the seat next to me is taken. And, I'm working, I have my AirPods in, so I'm like, yeah, yeah, no worries. Then he tries to make a joke about something, and I'm still like, ha ha ha, okay, yeah, half-assedly laughing, but really just paying attention to my screen. Then, a little while later, he taps me on the shoulder and he says, hey, are you using Otter? Otter is a transcription software that I was absolutely using as part of my work. And I say, yeah. He says, well, are you in the media? And I say, well, kind of. And by this time, it's Friday afternoon. I'm like, am I really going to be working? I'm also a rabid extrovert, so I will talk to anyone. So then I take my AirPods out. I start chatting with him. He asks me, what do you do for work? And I say, I have a video marketing agency. And then he drops a casual flex. He says, well, I'm just here treating myself because I just wrapped up an interview with the BBC. And I'm thinking, okay, I see what you're doing there. But also, it's working because now I'm talking to you. So then we start chatting about our work. It turns out that he's a public radio reporter, and we start exchanging stories. First, it's about our work, then we talk about our families, where we grew up. I find myself talking more and more and more because he's just asking me the most interesting questions. I was also used to interviewing people for a living. So now I'm countering with my own questions, and he's telling his own really fun stories. And before we know it, it's been 3.5 hours and we're still there chatting. By this time, my phone is blowing up because I realized that I'm supposed to have been meeting my friends for dinner and I completely forgot. So I'm getting all these text messages from friends being like, "Where are you? Have you died?" And one of them, of course, is like, "Did you meet a guy?" I tell Andy, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm really late for dinner. I need to leave." So he walks me to my car and he says, "What are we doing here?" I say, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Can I take you out for dinner tomorrow?" So Andy takes me out to dinner that weekend. And a year and a half later, we're married. Of course, there are a whole host of other reasons why I got married to Andy. But what made that initial meet cute even possible? Just two strangers sitting there and talking for 3.5 hours was good communication. It was good storytelling and good question asking. Without that, it wouldn't have happened. So, if nothing else, learn to become a better communicator to meet your future spouse. Okay, I'm obviously joking, but you can't deny the power of good communication, right? And that's my whole point. Storytelling is not just for politicians or celebrities who are addressing this like arena full of people. It's for everyday muggles who are just having a conversation with one or two people, maybe socially or at work, maybe they're making a presentation. There are so many uses for good storytelling. And when you practice good storytelling, you're just building muscle memory for all those things that make you a more effective communicator. You've now trained your brain to do things like remove the fluff, keeping your audience in mind, speaking with more vocal variety or descriptive language. You're now no longer just talking to fill space. You're saying things that matter in a way that makes an impact. And I don't know about you, but that seems pretty useful to me. And that's a wrap on this episode of Thoughts Between Shots. If you laughed, got goosebumps, learned something sneaky useful, share this with your people. And if you have an idea for a future storyteller, a good question to use, or you want to pitch yourself as a storyteller, hit me up in the DMs. Until next time, keep being curious and keep telling good stories.